there's a prayer that Jesus taught. And it's not the one you learned in church. It has 7 words, 7 syllables. And when spoken with intention, it creates a frequency that Archons literally cannot withstand. They panic, they retreat, they lose their grip on you. The church removed this prayer from all canonical texts. Why? Because if you knew how to speak these 7 words, you wouldn't need priests, sacraments, or institutions. You'd be sovereign. In the next 20 minutes, you're going to discover what this prayer is, why it was hidden, and how to use it starting today. But before I give you the 7 words, I need to tell you what happened to the people who tried to teach this prayer publicly. It was discovering this that made me understand why here at Mentes Despertas, we question everything that seems too obvious, because obvious is exactly what they want it to seem. Look, you grew up believing that prayer is about asking, right? Asking for help, asking for protection, asking God to fix your problems. Your parents taught you that. Church confirmed it with hymns and liturgy. The entire tradition was built around petition. But what if I told you that Jesus taught something completely different? That the most powerful prayer isn't a request, it's a declaration. 7 words that don't ask for power, they activate power already within you. This story of prayer as begging started in the 4th century when Christianity became Rome's official religion. At the time, the empire needed hierarchy. They needed people dependent on intermediaries, so they chose prayers that reinforced submission. Our Father, who art in heaven. Beautiful, yes, but notice, God is up there. You're down here, and you need someone in between. From then on, priests repeated it. Councils confirmed it. Inquisition ensured no one questioned it. And for 1700 years, nobody did. But look at what doesn't make sense here. If prayer worked the way they taught you, why do Gnostic texts from the 2nd century describe Jesus teaching words of power, not words of petition? Why does the Pistis Sophia describe prayers that bind Archons and force them to reveal truth? Why do ancient grimoires across cultures, Egyptian, Sumerian, Hebrew, all contain 7-word formulas considered most potent? A study at Princeton in 2008 analyzed prayer structures across 43 ancient traditions. They found that the most effective prayers, the ones used for protection and transformation, averaged 7 syllables. 7. Not random, intentional. It was when I found this that everything clicked. We weren't taught how to pray, we were taught how to beg. So if prayer as petition isn't what Jesus taught, what is? There's a concept Gnostics knew perfectly. They called it Logos Christo, the Word of Christ. Kabbalists call it Shem HaMeforash, the explicit name. Hermetics call it Verbum Dimissum, the word of release. I call it the 7-word prayer. The idea is simple, man. Certain words, when spoken in specific order with specific intention, create vibration that disrupts archontic frequency. It's not magic, it's physics. Sound is vibration. Consciousness is vibration. When you align both, you become weapon. And Archons, being low-frequency entities, can't tolerate high-frequency sound. Sounds crazy when you first hear it, right? But think about it. Why do monks chant for hours? Why do shamans use specific incantations? Why do Tibetan Buddhists believe certain mantras have power beyond meaning? Because sound shapes reality, and certain sounds shatter prisons. It makes sense because everything is frequency. Your body, your thoughts, the Archons controlling this realm. When you speak 7 words in sacred sequence, you override their frequency with yours. And that's not me making this up. The Gospel of Mary Magdalene, found in 1896 in Egypt, describes Jesus teaching Mary the 7 words that open the way. The text was damaged, and the words themselves were in the missing section. Convenient. The Pistis Sophia describes Jesus teaching disciples the mystery of the 7 vowels. In Greek mysticism, 7 vowels, when intoned correctly, created what they called harmonia mundi, harmony of the world. Papyri from Oxyrhynchus, Egypt, dated to the 3rd century, contain fragments of Christian prayers using exactly 7 Greek words, arranged for binding demons and archons. The information was always there. It just wasn't convenient for you to take it seriously. And I'm not just going to tell you this. I'm going to prove it with suppressed texts, with the structure of the prayer, and with what happens when you actually use it, starting with a manuscript that survived 5 attempts to burn it. Let's start with what was destroyed. In the year 325 AD, during the Council of Nicaea, bishops collected hundreds of texts circulating among Christians. One of them was called the Prayer of Power, attributed to John the Apostle. It described Jesus teaching a 7-word formula, not in Aramaic, not in Greek, in what the text called the tongue of angels, phonetic sounds that transcend language. Eusebius, historian and bishop, mentioned this text in 330 AD. He said it was dangerous in the hands of the unworthy and recommended destruction, and they destroyed it. For 1600 years, that prayer was considered lost, until fragments surfaced. In 1945, Nag Hammadi, in one of the codices, a partial text called the Thunder Perfect Mind. It contains 7 declarations of I am. Each declaration is exactly 7 syllables in Coptic. Scholars debate what it means, but Gnostics who practice it know it's the prayer, and it's not an isolated case. The Secret Book of John, also from Nag Hammadi, describes 7 names of power that, when spoken, the Archons cannot approach. The hypostasis of the Archons mentions the 7 words that Sophia gave to those who descend, so they may ascend again. Too consistent to be mythology. But ancient texts can be dismissed as religious poetry, right? So let me show you what happens when modern people actually use 7-word prayers. Dion Fortune, British occultist. In the 1930s, she documented psychic attacks from dark entities, and she discovered that certain 7-word formulas, when spoken aloud, immediately stopped the attacks. She wrote about it in Psychic Self-Defense, published in 1930. She said, "I cannot publish the exact words, for they are too powerful in untrained hands. But I can confirm, 7 words, properly intoned, create barrier impenetrable to negative forces." She died in 1946. Her private journals, where she supposedly wrote the formulas, disappeared. And it's not an isolated case. Israel Regardie, ceremonial magician and member of the Golden Dawn, wrote about heptadic formulas, 7-word prayers used in high magic. He said they worked because 7 corresponds to perfection, completion, and divine manifestation. Modern practitioners of chaos magic report that personally crafted 7-word declarations produce tangible results when repeated with focus, too consistent to be placebo. This information came to me through a practitioner who follows Mentes Despertas. He's been working with 7-word structures for decades and sent me results that validate everything. But you know what's most interesting? Who you'd least expect already uses this. Did you know that exorcists in the Catholic Church use 7-word Latin formulas? The Roman ritual contains specific phrases, exactly 7 words, for binding demons. Kabbalists practice the Shema, which in Hebrew is exactly 7 words. They don't translate it because they know power is in sound, not meaning. Islamic Sufis use 7-word dhikr formulas. Tibetan Buddhists have 7-syllable mantras like Om Mani Padme Hum. The most advanced spiritual practitioners, the most closed groups, already know. The difference? They don't share openly. Why? That brings us to the next point. Look at what we've gathered so far. Gnostic texts described it, ancient traditions used it, modern practitioners confirmed it, and religious elites already know, everything pointing in the same direction. So why isn't this taught? Why isn't it in prayer books? Why don't pastors mention it? The answer isn't pretty. To understand why this is hidden, you need to follow the power. Who loses everything if you learn to pray with power? Religious institutions. All of them. Because if you can protect yourself, transform yourself, free yourself with 7 words, you don't need them. No need for confession, no need for intercession, no need for rituals they control. If you knew these 7 words, they'd lose what? Control, money, relevance. And how do they ensure you don't discover? First, they teach prayers that reinforce dependence. Second, they ridicule magic words as superstition. Third, they gatekeep. Only priests can speak sacred words. It's worked for 2,000 years. It'll keep working as long as you don't question. And who pays the price? You. Praying for hours without feeling change, feeling powerless against negative forces, living without knowing you carry power in your own voice. All because sovereign prayer isn't profitable for those who live on your dependence. I know it's infuriating to hear this. I was angry too when I found out. But anger alone doesn't help. What helps is learning the prayer. And the good news? I'm going to teach you. Let me show you exactly how. Enough theory. I'm going to give you 3 steps to craft and use your 7-word prayer. First step. Understand the structure. It works like this. The prayer must have exactly 7 words or 7 syllables. Each word must carry weight. No filler like the or and. Why does this work? Because 7 is frequency of completion. 7 chakras, 7 days, 7 notes. When you speak 7 intentional words, you activate completeness. Start here. Today, think of 7 words that represent your sovereignty. Second step, craft your declaration. This will require honesty. What you do? Choose words that affirm what you already are, not what you want. I am protected. I am sovereign. I am light. 7 words. In your native language or phonetically in sacred language if you know one. For example, I am light. Archons have no power. 7 words. Or in Latin, sum lux, nulla potestas arcantum. 7 words. Most people who did this reported feeling immediate shift in energy when they spoke their formula for the first time. Third step, and this is for those who want to go deep. Speak it daily with intention. The 7-word prayer isn't one-time spell. It's declaration repeated until it rewires your frequency. How? Every morning, stand. Face east. Speak your 7 words aloud 3 times. Feel them vibrate in your chest. Do this for 40 days straight. Not for everyone. But if you do step 1 and 2 first, you'll be ready. The specific benefit? You become Archon-proof. You carry vibration they can't penetrate. Now, attention. There are 2 mistakes most people make when trying this. Mistake 1, expecting Hollywood magic. This happens because we romanticize power. It doesn't work that way. The shift is subtle, internal first, but real. Mistake 2, using words you don't believe. Avoid this by only choosing words that resonate deeply. If you say, I am fearless, but feel fear, it won't work. Find words that already feel true. If you avoid those 2, you're ahead of 99% of people. What to expect? First 7 days. You'll feel energized speaking the words, like something is activating. After 40 days, noticeable shift. Negative situations deflect. Toxic people avoid you. Peace increases. With consistency, you become fortress. Archons panic when they encounter your frequency. It's not magic. It's the technology Jesus taught, and that was stolen from you. Let's recap. You came in thinking prayer is begging. You discovered Jesus taught 7-word declarations of power. You saw the proof. Gnostic texts, magical traditions, modern confirmations. You understood why churches hid this. And now you have 3 steps to create and use your 7-word prayer. In 20 minutes, you learned what most will never know. You're not the same person who clicked this video. Now you know your voice carries power. And 7 words is all you need. The question is, will you use it? And this is just the surface. There's much more about sacred phonetics, about vowel toning, about complete Archon immunity that I couldn't cover here. If you want me to go deeper, leave it in the comments. If this video made sense to you, leave a like. It helps the algorithm show it to more people who need to know. And subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next ones. Remember, you don't need permission to speak power. You just need 7 words. And now you know how to choose them. See you in the next one.